So hello, welcome to the video and welcome to Heathrow's Terminal 5, from where today I will be taking BA's worst flight. There's a lot of competition for that title around the BA network, but I hope by the end of this video you'll understand why this route deserves that title. I'm flying in business class from here in London down to Amman in Jordan. That's about a 5-hour flight, but it's operated on one of BA's regular Club Europe planes, which you might get if you're flying for 30 minutes up to Manchester, and it's going to be a bit of a squeeze for that long. The things I do for you, dear viewer, in the name of entertainment. But if you'd like to see how I cope with BA's worst flight, stick around. Hi, I'm Matt and this is Matt's Planet. I aim to entertain, educate and inspire with my travel adventures from planning to execution. I'll show you how you can travel in style for a lot less than you'd think. So subscribe so you can come with me. So before I go and check in, a little bit of history. For many years this route and its sister route down to Cairo in Egypt were operated on regular BA long-haul aircraft. It was considered a long-haul route. That got you 3, perhaps even 4 different classes of service. In business class you get a nice flat bed, all classes would get in-seat entertainment, and there was the sort of catering that a wide-bodied long-haul aircraft can deliver. And then in about 2018, BA downgraded the service by moving the flights onto some of their narrow-body planes that they'd acquired from British Midland. These had a dedicated business cabin with lie-flat beds. I never flew on it, so I've seen it described as lie-flat-ish. But the narrow-body galleys meant they had to dumb down the service versus what they could offer on a wide-body, and the cabin wasn't really quite as good as you got on one of their wide-body planes. But they carried on that way for a couple of years until the you-know-what came along, where they downgraded the service again, this time to a regular narrow-body with their regular Club Europe cabins, even though Amman and Cairo clearly aren't in Europe. So in business class you get the same seat as you do in economy. You get the middle seat blocked, which means you've got a bit of space laterally, but you don't have a lot of space in front of you. I believe the catering is not really any different to what you might get on a 2-hour flight to Central Europe, and there's no entertainment, and all round it's just a pretty grim experience. But the worst indignity is that by calling it a European flight, they reduced the tier points that you earn on this route from 140, which is what it should earn, and indeed what the One World rules say it should earn, down to 80 tier points. It's a redemption for me today, so I'm not so worried about the tier points, but it is something that really annoyed frequent travellers on this route. Now Tel Aviv is a very similar distance, and BA has maintained a wide-body service throughout to that destination, probably not unrelated to the fact that there's quite a lot of rich Israelis who travel through London to North America who can sustain that sort of service and make BA some money. Although I believe that service is already in the progress of being dumbed down to this Club Europe experience. So that is why I'm expecting this to be BA's worst flight, and let's go check in and see how it turns out. If you recognise the backdrop from the intro, that's because I used it in the video I made about Terminal 5's lounges, a video you can find here. So I won't talk about my lounge experience in this video. It was all a bit hectic actually, as I spent my time running between the 7 lounges you can find airside, plus the 2 that are landside. Despite this, I made it to the gate in good time to see the 5-year-old Airbus A320 that would take us down to Amman that evening. At least BA gave us the 12th newest A320 in BA's fleet for this ordeal. Boarding was, well, we boarded. I'd popped to the loo, and when I got back the barriers had been opened and a lot of Group Zeros and Group 1s seemed to be on this flight. I don't know whether Group Zeros got to board first, but almost immediately Groups 1 through 3 were called forward. I don't understand BA's boarding process, as that's supposed to be 3 calls rather than 1. Perhaps this condensing of the process is allowed if it's not a status-heavy flight, or perhaps the gate agents were working from their own script. I've seen it happen in outstations, but not at BA's home base. First world problems for sure, and it really didn't make much of a difference, but it's one of those things that BA should just get right. If anyone watching knows the boarding protocol, please let me know in the comments. On board and onto what's probably a familiar cabin to you. If it's not familiar, BA copies most European carriers these days by having the same seat throughout the plane. The size of the business cabin can therefore flex according to demand. Looks like we had 7 rows of business that evening. The legroom does tighten by an inch behind the mid-cabin exit rows, but you get no extra legroom from being in business class. I was seat 2F that evening. You get 30 inches of legroom, which is tight. It's 3 inches less than you get on BA's Embraer fleet at London City, and at least 6 inches less than you'd get in just about any US airline's short-haul business class. BA does reward your purchase of a premium experience by blocking the middle seats, which is great if you're wider than you're tall, but isn't much consolation if you're over 6 foot and have a lot of leg to stash under the seat in front of you. A blanket and pillow was on each seat, not huge, but the pillow was quite full. No amenity kits. A tray table, no seatback entertainment, but you do get personal air vents. A menu was distributed. I asked if they had an even smaller one, but this was the smallest available. I'll share its contents later. It really is tight for a 5-hour flight in a premium cabin. But I did get lucky in that I ended up with no one in the aisle seat, which proved to be quite a bonus. The doors closed, we were ready to go, but I spotted some ground crew taking an interest in the starboard engine. Nothing happened for about 5 minutes, but it must have been nothing as we pushed back about 10 minutes late. We had to taxi the length of the airport to access runway 27 left, but the pilot didn't need to touch the brakes as we lined up and took off, up into a pleasant London evening. Service started quickly and I had a gin and tonic in my hands within 15 minutes of wheels up, served with the standard business class packaged nuts, the same as you get on long haul flights. And very nice it was too. The menu card revealed no choice of starter, but a choice of 3 mains, although prawn cocktail is better known as a starter. 2 red wines and 2 whites to choose from, and a narrow spirits range, slightly narrower than you get on a proper long-haul flight. I went for the barbecue chicken and the entire meal was served in one go on a tray. Again, a long way from a long-haul service experience. The starter wasn't brilliant, but the rest of it was very tasty, as Dough & Co food usually is. Not perhaps the best looking chicken dish you'll ever see, but it was a really chunky serving. Washed down with some of the Zinfandel. The chocolate puddings should be drug tested as they're so addictive. So addictive in fact that I broke my own rule about not filming myself eating. Om nom nom. The Zinfandel was okay, but I felt a need to sample the Malbec too, which I thought was a little better. The loo was an airplane loo, nothing to write home about, but it was clean and more importantly the floor was dry. A few embellishments too for the business cabin. BA has recently introduced free messaging for Executive Club members through the plane's Wi-Fi system, which is a welcome enhancement to the offering. Full Wi-Fi access for a flight of this length was available for only £5, which I thought was very good value. I was able to log in, but they still needed me to prove I was a human, which felt a little strange given I was on an aeroplane, but I was able to prove that I was not a bot and was in. And it worked well, although I do like feeling uncontactable when I'm in the air, so I didn't really use it. Sorry to bang on about the terrible legroom, but having no one in the aisle seat did give me some extra options to stretch out. Once the meal was cleared, the lights were dimmed and I was able to get really quite comfortable, so much so that I got about 90 minutes sleep, which was a real bonus. And before I really knew it, we were crossing the coast of northern Israel on our descent into Amman. This was only a few days after Jordanian airspace had been closed because of Israel's scuffle with Iran, but it was all back to normal that day and it was a clear and beautiful night, providing some great views as we descended. And 4.5 hours after leaving London, I landed into Amman after enduring BA's worst flight. And I'm almost embarrassed to report that I really enjoyed it. The seat is terrible, but I lucked out by having a row to myself, which made it more than tolerable. The food and drink was great, and the crew were exceptional. I had a chat with one of them, and they'd been called off reserve to operate this flight, and most of them had never been to Jordan before, so were really excited about the 2 nights they got to spend there before operating the return flight. Some had even thrown together a trip to Petra for their rest day, not that a day trip there is a particularly restful experience. The flight was part of a very complicated redemption I made using BA's multi-partner awards chart, something I'll talk about another day, although I'll leave a link to the Head for Points article on the topic in the description to this video. Now, I get my Avios very cheaply through the year. Check out this video for exactly how I get them. But if you value the Avios I spent on this trip at the 0.22 of a p they cost me on average, and spread the total cost of this trip across the flights based on miles flown, this leg cost me 178 quid, which is exceptional value for a flight of this length. It would have cost nearly 3 times that if I'd bought the ticket with cash. We tend to think of flights as being either long or short haul, but at 2,300 miles, London to Amman really is a medium haul route. BA used to operate it as a long haul route, which didn't feel right for the customer and I assume wasn't profitable for BA. They now operate it as a short haul route, which probably is now profitable for BA, even if it still doesn't feel right for the customer. But BA doesn't really have a medium haul offering. Indeed, very few airlines have a dedicated product for this length of service. So my advice is to expect a short haul experience and you won't be disappointed. And if you get lucky with a good crew and no one else in your row, it is possible to really enjoy BA's worst flight. So thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed it. Give the video a like if you did, and please consider subscribing if you're new. And leave me a comment, would you fly that far in that seat? And if you'd like to support what I'm doing more directly, there is a Patreon account, the link in the description below. So thanks again for watching and I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye.